Hi, I'm David Mantia, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Ben Munson. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites, Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net, and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Ben at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can join us when we go live every Thursday, and subscribe to our daily newsletters so you can get it delivered to your inbox first. Ben, thank you for joining us today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to a lively conversation. Everyone's going to stay awake while watching it. It's going to be great.
And Jeff, it appears that Ben still remembers some of the very harsh criticism from Doug.
No. It wasn't that harsh. No, I'm just joking around. It's constructive. Yeah.
Basically, he's able to just roll with things just like you.
Yeah,
like, doesn't let anything bug him. Doesn't stick with him at all.
No, I might have even let in like just singing. You know, like we're turning it into a musical. We're singing the entire podcast. Well, it is good to have you back. Either way. And happy to hear you're bringing that fire. Just a little scared, but all right, let's see what comes.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, before we get started with our first story this week, we have a word from our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite. This week's episode is sponsored by Oracle NetSuite. Knowledge is power, especially when navigating AI. Demystifying AI, a layperson's guide to artificial intelligence and its impact on our world, is a new business guide written by acclaimed author Glenn Hopper. The guide provides a comprehensive introduction to AI, shedding light on the core concepts and technologies that fuel it. Download it now. There's a link in the description and the live chat. Jeff, really should stress that people should check this one out because, if anything, it really sets a good base as to where we are with AI right now.
Yeah, there's a ton of good stuff in there. It really does. Like you said, it kind of well, as the name would suggest, it really clarifies what I was going for there. A lot of the misperceptions about the terminology and the origins of AI, and also where we are right now and how it can be used.
And it's very digestible. Like sometimes you get the experts chiming in on a subject and you're just like already in the weeds. Like, I'm sorry. Like you lost me after intelligence. But and I understand how that sounds.
You set yourself up pretty good there.
And we all heard it. And we're just gonna blaze past that one.
Might come up again here shortly. We'll see.
First story this week. Ford unveils Bronco inspired by off-road racing champion from the 1960s. In 1966, the first Ford Bronco set the tone for an SUV market expected to generate some $333 billion in revenue this year. Off-road enthusiasts loved the Bronco and soon started modifying them for off-road racing. But Bill Stropp and his legendary work lifted the brand to the competitive force it is today. For example, in 1969, Stropp modified a Bronco that became the first and still the only outright winner of a stock 4x4 at the Baja 1000. Stropp's work became so popular that you could actually order Baja Broncos from most Ford dealers. Ford would ship a half-finished Baja Bronco to Long Beach, California, and Stropp would work his magic on it. This week, my voice cracked and Ford announced that the Baja 1000 winning name will return to the Ford lineup in January 2025 with the new Bronco Stropp Special Edition. The limited edition Bronco is a successor to the original Stropp Baja Bronco from the 1960s and 70s and is designed to pair the original's desert racing spirit with modern off-road capabilities. Jeff, do you like it when automakers do these sort of callbacks that hope to capture consumer interest through nostalgia? And is this one going to be a needle mover for the Bronco?
I mean, I think these are really cool, especially when you're looking at a kind of a pioneer like this Stropp was in terms of what he did. What's kind of crazy is how popular and how everybody can envision that Baja Bronco and what it looked like. He only made like 650 of these things.
Really?
So it's crazy how strongly that sort of the feelings that it creates and how strongly it resonates with everybody still, and the fact that they would bring it back. I mean, it also kind of follows on this wave that Bronco has been riding and what Ford has been riding with Bronco. I mean, we're talking about a brand that took a 25-year hiatus, came back in 2021, and it's been growing in sales every year. So there's just something with the identity of that brand that just people are gravitating to. So it makes a lot of sense to do this. Whenever I see this stuff about the Bronco, and it's always so positive, it kind of takes me back a little bit too to how it survived sort of the Bronco 2 dynamic. Do you guys remember everything that went through with the Bronco 2?
No.
It was a smaller version of the Bronco, as you might think,
so
or the name would suggest.
Just one door?
You're really following up on that intelligence comment, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. And I'm going to lean in.
So basically, it was a smaller version, yes. But it had 2 doors, David.
Oh, all right.
It did have 2 doors.
Genius
but
idea.
It was lighter, but the wheelbase was also tighter, shorter. So it had a lot of issues with tipping.
Be a little tippy, yeah.
Yeah, so it was bad. By the time they actually, and it was never recalled, they just stopped making it.
Yeah.
So by the time they did that, you'd have thought that that Bronco brand would have kind of undergone some damage, but apparently that's gone and not remembered, which is fine. So it's just cool to see how this brand, and whenever we run something, whether it's Bronco, Jeep, or whatever, those types of vehicles just get a ton of attention. So it's interesting to see how Ford is now capitalizing on that.
Maybe that was the first idea. Okay, hey, we're thinking about relaunching the Bronco 2.
No.
Silence.
No, let's not do that.
How about a Baja Bronco? There we go. What was your initial reaction when you first saw either the photos or the footage of this out on the test course?
So I'm not a Ford guy. It's interesting growing up. I've sort of softened on a lot of that getting older. Now you're just looking for a good vehicle, reliable, all those types of things. But there was definitely a point in time when you were so brand loyal. Yeah. And in our house, I mean, you can ask my daughters. Yeah. Grandpa would not allow a Ford in the driveway. That was not going to happen. Okay. So you're sort of torn because you see this really cool looking vehicle. It's obviously got high marks in every category, so you're drawn to it. Yeah. But for me, there was a little bit of internal conflict there. But initially, when you see it, it's just like, yeah. Sign me up.
No, it was because initially when Bronco relaunched for me, it was, oh, well, I thought it'd be cooler, but it has how it has evolved over the last 3 years. When I saw the photos of this, I was immediately like, that is cool. Yeah. And I need to figure out a way to justify a 2-door Bronco for my family. Ben, what were your thoughts when you first saw this Baja Bronco? And did you get a chance to kind of look into its legacy at all?
Yeah, I was, you want to find out more about the color scheme in particular. It looks cool, and it's fairly close to what they were doing with the original. Like Jeff said, I think they made like the Strop Garage made like 650 of them too. And what they said was basically like, we want to take, this half-finished Bronco, we'll do our thing, and essentially you can take this car and be in the Baja 1000. Yeah. Like, that's really cool. Right off the line.
It seems like something that initially great idea, and then you kind of line up at that Baja 1000. And you're like, I don't think I'm quite qualified for this race.
Yeah, I was reading about the Baja 1000. I'm like, I hope people didn't like get their car and be like, let's go do this now. This is going to be super cool, because this race sounds crazy, man. Like the route is always changing, not like mid race, but like every year, year. Sometimes it's point to point, and other years it's like a loop. And the terrain is like all over the place. There's silt, which is just like sand, but worse. And it's like you can't get out of it. There's mountain passes with like huge boulders. I don't know if they fall on top of you or what, but
it's a video game.
It is a video game.
Yeah,
yes, you must dodge the falling
this is
boulders.
Mario Kart. Yeah, there's flooding, and then there are even locals setting booby traps.
What?
Yeah, they're setting booby traps, like holes. They're digging holes. They're hiding jumps, so you hit them without knowing.
Man.
And they're making mud pits on purpose. Some of them are even like redirecting floodwaters, so they go over the course.
This sounds amazing.
And a little intense. I got to take the week off because I got to go screw with some racers in the desert.
Like, it's already a brutal race. It sounds like you and your vehicle are going to get just pummeled. Yeah. But then on top of all the natural elements you got to deal with, there's these people pulling pranks, like just so they could see your vehicle like fly through the air and flip over, or, like explode.
Yeah, but I mean, that makes a little bit more sense as to how it has persisted over so many years, because you're getting the buy-in not just from the racers, but like a real sense of like not belonging, but being a part of the race from, you know, these pranksters.
Yeah. No, I think this is excellent. I would love to see this kind of boil over into some other like U.S. sports. I would love to see more fan involvement, more booby traps, like in every sport.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. Like just, let them have a say. You know,
like if they could translate this to that waste management outing or whatever in golf, where you could actively booby trap some of the like the back nine.
Yeah,
I'm all in. Yeah. All in on that one.
I might watch golf then.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that I was curious about is that the Baja Bronco had such a following that they even launched a merch page. And I don't know, do you think that this is going to have a lasting effect on the Bronco legacy? And it's actually kind of cool too, Ben, that it kind of gets Strop's name back out in the headlines again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if there's ever like an opportunity to merchandise, any company will take that, you know, and run with it. And I think the Bronco name was kind of already out there. Like you guys said, people were really excited when they brought the band back, or, you know, when the brand returned after like, I think it was 24 years, right? 25 years or something like that. And it's been selling pretty well for them too. Ford just put out its Q3 sales figures earlier this month. They sold a little over 500,000 vehicles in the quarter. Wow. And of course, you know, the bulk of that was like the F series. Yeah. It was like 200,000. So
that's so
crazy. Yeah, that's so many trucks. But the Bronco Sport was like way up there in terms of like units that they actually sold. I mean, it was ahead of stuff like, or, you know, it wasn't far behind like the Explorer or, you know, the Escape or the Maverick, kind of, you know, pretty well-known names from Ford. So, I mean, this is a case where they brought something back. Maybe it was for, you know, a nostalgic thing, but it's translating. It's like, you know,
it's stuck.
Yeah.
No, and it is wild how many of these you kind of see out on the road now. And I'm still in that mode where you're like, what is that? Oh, it's the new Bronco. Okay. The Wisco gas station, who's watching us live, says pranksters' sense of community. And yeah, they could work together, these different tribes of people setting traps that are, you know, menacing but not deadly. And producer Eric, who's out of the office, mentioned, should we get some sort of IEN or Old Grease race team? And I'm all in on that, because I know that
what could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. I mean, nothing could go more wrong than us in dodgeball. So
I think it could.
We're already breaking stuff. I was kind of curious about the price point. So the vehicle or the trim that this one was replacing is the 2024 or the Ford Bronco Wildtrak, and that started at about $60,000. So it's going to be likely costly, but not as bad as I expected, to be honest. I was thinking like 70, 80. According to Ford Performance, FordPerformance.com, Strop's most famous Bronco was one named Big Ollie. Yeah. And it was famous, quote, due to its general badassedness. Yeah. Direct quote. Just like, I'm like, tell me more. This version of the Bronco dominated Baja-style off-road racing in 1971 and 72. In 2021, a 1969 Big Ollie Bronco that was owned by Parnelli Jones, who was the driver. He was the driver, and Strop was the navigator during these races.
And he sounds nuts. Like, I was reading about him, like what Strop said about him. He's like, when you're riding with him, it's like you're either going to win, like the car's going to break, or you're going to die. Those are like the three outcomes.
That's what it takes to be a good race car driver. And you just really hope it's not C out of those three. Well, his 1969 Big Ollie Bronco sold out of the Parnelli Jones collection for $1.87 million. So there's a demand out there from Bronco enthusiasts. Our next most popular story: Boeing to lay off 17,000 employees. Last week, a new Boeing CEO, Kelly Ortberg, issued a memo to staff. It outlined plans to cut 17,000 workers, including executives, managers, and employees. Boeing is going to lay off about 10% of its workforce in the coming months as it hemorrhages money while dealing with a strike that is crippling production. The rolling temporary furloughs already instituted are going to be suspended as a result of the layoffs, and Boeing also delayed the rollout of the 777X, pushed that back to 2026, and stopped building the cargo version of its 767 jet in 2027 after finishing current orders. Boeing has lost more than $25 billion since the start of 2019, and on Tuesday said it will likely try to raise $25 billion in new stock or debt to shore up its balance sheet. Some 33,000 union machinists have been on strike since September 14th, and Boeing recently teased its Q3 financials, including the fact that the company burned through $1.3 billion in cash. The company still has $10.5 billion in cash and marketable securities as of September 30th. So, Ben, still plenty left to light on fire, but at that rate, they would be out of money in just over 2 years.
Yeah, it looks like they're kind of heading that way, at least from the outside. But these latest moves that you just mentioned, the layoffs, the white collar worker layoffs, we should specify, and the effort to raise $25 billion. Seem like they could be a sign that Boeing is digging in against the striking workers. At least that's according to aerospace analyst Gerald Lundquist, who was just writing in Forbes today. Like, this is the strategy that Boeing chose. And he said, instead they could have tried to kind of, quickly settle with the union to restart production and try to improve labor relations. They could have built production volumes to kind of stop this cash erosion, this humongous cash fire that they have burning right now.
Yeah.
And then also assure regulators and financial markets. They can identify non-core businesses for, that they could divest, and they could develop a stable platform. And then after that, even conduct even larger and more strategic kind of restructuring of their white collar workforce. But that's not what they chose to do.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're digging in, and it's an interesting strategy. I'm sure, Ortberg will have more to say about it next week when this is his first earnings call, right? As CEO. So he's going to have to explain kind of the long-term thinking here.
One thing that I was surprised by, Jeff, is that they didn't let Calhoun take this one with him too. But it might not have been an inevitability when he stepped down back in August, which kind of shows how fast things are going for Boeing and how fast things are going for Boeing in the wrong direction.
Well, let's also remember that this is their non-defense business. Yeah. That is an absolute dumpster fire. Okay, they still do have some things going on the other arm of the business that is still pretty strong and is probably propping them up in some ways.
Yeah, in some ways, but they took huge write-downs on some of that.
Agreed. I mean, the whole place is not going great. When you're dealing with a company that's got a 40% year-over-year drop in their stock price, there's a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a good thing. But to me, when you look at this situation, there's some weird pressures on both sides of this, with both the workers and management, or the company, if you will. So like I said, with Boeing, you're looking at the fact that they are pacing well behind in terms of new orders. Last year total, they had like 500 planes that they sold. This year so far through September, sitting at about a little over 200.
Yeah.
So definitely pacing to miss any sales goals, I'm going to go out on a limb and say. Yeah. They also have like 5,700 planes on back order right now. So they've got a lot of orders, a lot of stuff brewing, but they can't get to it if they don't have people making planes. They also have this huge quality issue, which we've talked about a ton here. And looking into that, one of the reasons, or one of the things people are talking about that they maybe sort of the genesis of a lot of these quality issues is for a lot of their newer planes, in an effort to get them done more quickly and more cost effectively, they've outsourced like 70% of the design, the engineering, and a lot of the component or module or manufacturing that would go with that. So if you're Boeing, now you've got 33,000 people on strike. You're getting pressures to increase your stock price, get these planes out the door, settle all of these floods that are going on, And then you've also got pressure coming from all of your strategic suppliers saying, send us some work, man.
Yeah.
So you see where Boeing is. And then the other side, you've got the workers who over the last decade basically have had increases that have not even covered cost of living increases. Okay. It hasn't kept up with things. So you can appreciate where they're coming from. But also, if they don't get back to work pretty soon with job cuts and everything else that's going on at Boeing, what are they going back to? And we've seen with the UAW, with Stellantis here, some concessions were made and then folks got back there and, well, we wanted to, but we can't.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out and how much longer both of them hold out here to get something settled. The workers want 40, the union wants 40% pay increase over the next 4 years. Boeing came up with 30, then pulled it off the table when they wouldn't take it. It feels like somebody's got to blink here because nobody's really got a real winning hand. It just feels like I don't know where there's more pressure to get this thing resolved.
I mean, you're right. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's just a hard situation.
Well, and you talk about the strike, that has a direct impact on cash burn because Boeing gets like more than half of the price of planes when it delivers them to airline customers. So it's basically just burning through cash as it can't make any deliveries. They do have, I believe it's, they still are making 787s at a non-union plant in South Carolina, but the strike shut down production of 737 Maxes, which is Boeing's best-selling plane, 777s and 767s. So it doesn't look good. And I don't know if you're, Ben, if you're a member of the union and you're looking at, let's go on the UAW comparison, right? Things went all right when it came to negotiations with GM or Ford, and you can maybe look at that as, okay, maybe this could go well if we kind of string out this negotiation a little bit. Or you look at Stellantis and you're just like, whew, well, we got what we wanted kind of on paper, but then things went bad almost immediately.
Right. Yeah. And, it's like Jeff said before, it's hard to, tell who has the leverage in this case. I'm sure the striking workers, are maybe partly relying on Boeing not wanting another black eye. But also at this point for Boeing, what is another black eye?
Yeah.
I mean, if your house already burned down, your car exploded, your dog ran away. It's like if somebody comes along and they're like, I'm going to slash the tires on your bike, be like, just do it.
Right.
Like, what's the point?
I still have my razor.
Yeah.
No, it is wild. And talking about restructuring, Jeff, Boeing just brought Spirit Aerosystems back into the fold. I mean, is more restructuring going to bring other suppliers in-house? I mean, is that what they need, this additional $25 billion that they're looking to raise for? I wonder what some of these changes actually look like. I mean, Boeing hasn't earned an annual profit since 2018.
Wow, that really says a lot right there. I mean, this is one of the staples of our aerospace economy. So for him to be in this much trouble, it is unsettling. One of the things that was sort of glossed over too, or didn't get as much attention, is Airbus even announced layoffs this week as well. So there is some turbulence, if you will, in the mil-aero right marketplace.
There. Yeah,
but as far as these restructuring things go for Boeing, I think they do have to look at bringing more things in. How else do you solve a lot of these quality issues? Again, just to reinforce that, they've got like 50 strategic suppliers that they outsource to. We don't know how many people those 50 strategic suppliers are outsourcing other things to. Yeah. So when you look at sort of the trickle-down effect here, it could be catastrophic in terms of trying to figure out where those quality issues lie and all the layers you have to go through and how much they may need to bring inside in order to figure a lot of those things out and sort of right the ship so that they can actually get a plane going without the door flying off.
Well, hoping that they right the ship soon. On Friday, Boeing announced some large write-downs that I kind of teased earlier. A $2.6 billion charge over 776 delays, a $400 million write-down for the 767, and a $2 billion write-down for defense and space programs. That includes Air Force One orders and that little tickle that they got from that space capsule problem and the other things going on with the Starliner program. So hoping that this is bottom for Boeing and things start going positive for them, just because I do think, while we have argued in the past whether or not they're too big to fail, I do think that the aerospace industry is better with Boeing in it, and we all want to see them come out on the other side of this.
No, I'd agree. I think the onus is on both parties to come together and get this figured out quickly.
All right, our next most popular story. Swiss court upholds watchmaker's odd bathroom break rule. A court in Switzerland recently sided with a 105-year-old family-run dial manufacturer, saying it's justified in telling workers to clock in and out for bathroom breaks. Gene Singer, the manufacturer, was within its rights to make workers punch out for potty breaks. The case gained a little bit of steam after labor inspectors visited the site during the pandemic in 2021 and learned of it. Inspectors told the company it was a violation of a federal labor law that protects workers' personal needs, arguing that it caused workers to, quote, hold it in or not hydrate, which can be bad. However, Singer said staffers had, quote, a great deal of freedom, including the length of each break, which was, quote, left to the discretion of each employee. The court said the law is clear on restroom rights, but this is kind of a loophole. So, Ben, the only logical solution appears to be more fiber offerings in the break room and maybe cut a bubbler or two, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't, it's like this whole thing has me just kind of spiraling. It's just so stupid. Like, it's like, right away you're thinking, like, doesn't the act of clocking out before a bathroom break and clocking in after also waste time?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they hoping to accomplish by doing this? And you're wondering, how do you even streamline a process like this? I mean, it's pretty common to have to clock out for like pre-scheduled breaks. I've had jobs where you have to do that. And there's a time clock in the break room or whatever, right? So does this mean there's something in the bathroom too?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
Could they put it on the app? Because, I mean, you're right. It seems odd to me that someone would have to clock out to urinate when clocking in and out will likely take longer than the actual break. Mm-hmm. Is there like one of those little buttons that you think's a panic button if you fall down in the bathroom, but it's actually you clocking out?
Yeah. And what are they talking about when the employees have the discretion about the length of the break? Is that how long your bathroom break is?
No, it's okay. So that was the big part for me. I mean, when it comes to burying the lead, right? You get 7 paragraphs into this thing, and then you see that employees can take breaks basically wherever and whenever they want for toilet breaks, meal breaks, rest breaks, bone breaks, and I like that they threw in nature walks too.
Yeah, nature walk.
But I think that's so it's a little bit of both, right? They could take breaks when and wherever they wanted to. They just had to clock out for whatever they were doing. Yeah. But I think that that's the loophole where there is a fundamental physiological need to go to the bathroom. And if you're just going to the bathroom, you shouldn't need to clock in and out for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Jeff was going to touch on this too, but it almost sounds like something happened.
Yeah.
Like somebody messed it up for everybody else.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that, Jeff, in your opinion, was there some sort of squeaky wheel? These investigators are in there just making sure that they're complying with pandemic protocol. And someone just on the side is like, they don't even let us go to the bathroom here.
I mean, this had to start from some sort of extreme, right? Like somebody was spending, tens of minutes in the restroom or something like that. And some supervisor's like, all right, fine. You have to clock out. Yeah. And that person goes, well, if I have to clock out, then everybody does. And this is how these things spiral. This is like Ben said, this is really dumb. And what it does is it takes time and energy away from what you're supposed to be focusing your time and energy on. Mm-hmm. Making stuff.
Yeah, making watches.
Making watch dials.
Yeah.
So I think it was that case. I mean, what it kind of reminds me of, too, is the debate that we always, wasn't even a debate. It was conversation. Like smoke breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, working in a salaried environment where you're obviously not punching a clock, but you've got somebody out there smoking a cigarette for 10 minutes every hour. It's like, what's that, man? Like, shouldn't they have to stay an extra half an hour or 45 minutes every day? I don't know. Whatever.
I used to joke about that at multiple jobs where when people would see me, when you get that sort of, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, I'd just be like, I'm on my smoke break, because it was, 10, 20 years ago when you would get a group of people, You know, a
100%.
lifetime ago, 3 generations past at publishing companies, there was a group of people. Yep. They would go through the aisles, collect all the smokers, walk outside, wait till everyone had finished smoking, and then came back into their cubicles. And I'm just like, what's that?
Well, and I think what it goes back to, and we talk about this a lot here, usually with safety, but it's a cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
You trust your employees to use the restroom, take what breaks they need to, whatever the case is, so they can be as productive as possible. And whether this stemmed from an employee or an overzealous manager, or whatever the case is, the solution is real simple. Be a human being, be considerate of other people, and do your job. It's not that complicated. And it bleeds into a lot of other things within manufacturing, whether it's Switzerland or the US or any place else. Hiring is hard. Mm-hmm. You need to put the energy into that process and not just take a warm body to plug them in. Make sure it's the right fit for your company. Yeah. And then instill those values of what the culture is so they don't feel like they need to waste a half an hour in the bathroom.
I was trying to line it up because this was around the pandemic. So I was trying to think what app was huge in 2021 that the worker was likely going to the bathroom and playing. Mm-hmm. You know, so is this not so much a bathroom break problem? Is this a Words with Friends problem? Is this an Angry Birds problem? Mm-hmm. Just because, I mean, a person spending too much time in the bathroom, I mean, you got some real medical issues. Mm-hmm. Or it's just like you walk in one time and you can hear the like birds sailing into the into whatever it's got to crash, and you're just like, okay, someone's taking advantage here. So, quote, Swiss law does not mention the right of employees to go to the toilet, even though this is a basic physiological need. I feel like that's one you got to fix, Ben.
Yeah, and I think this is a loophole that's kind of come to light now for them that I'm sure lawmakers and regulators are going to address. You know, I don't think it needed to be specifically mentioned, but since it isn't, you know, it's
causes problems like this, right?
Exactly.
Well, and so, I mean, you got to think, Jeff, you have to think that people are still going to the bathroom at Gene Singer here and not clocking out, you know, but I mean, I think that when coupled with a lunch break, a nature walk, and maybe going to use the telephone, whatever they're doing, they punch out for that. But I feel like if they're just dipping in and out, like unless it's on the other side of the city, you know, they got to go to some like community bathroom shared by 20 businesses. I don't know the situation.
Yeah, you would hope that the practical application of this bylaw was different than the actual, you know, what the expectation was.
Yeah, I do like the manufacturer's response to it. Like, we seriously let them do whatever they want, whenever they want, as long as they get their work done. We just ask them to punch out when they're not doing anything. And I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good argument.
Fair.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
I just will say, like, it's kind of funny that they said this could lead to people, you know, holding it in or not hydrating. But I'm like, there's probably some truth to that, too, because if you're talking about a work disruption in terms of somebody, you know, spending too much time in the bathroom, then you should also consider somebody becoming severely dehydrated or having an accident in the workplace as also very disruptive. I could imagine that being maybe even more disruptive than somebody taking a little bit too long in the bathroom.
No, agreed. I feel like that if someone does have an accident at their workstation, it's going to disrupt work a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be gross.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to this and Swiss authorities can really get into action and change this, you know, fix this problem.
Yeah.
Just Swiss workers across the nation bringing emergency pants to the office. Just like, I've got no other choice.
Yeah, you can't even look at your watch anymore.
Right?
You're just like, every time you look down, you're like, man, what cost?
Right? Honey, what are you putting on? Oh, that's my stadium buddy. That's the only way I can get through the workday.
I got to make these watches.
All right. Our next most popular story. I actually want to go into a watch shop, find a Swiss watch with this dial on it and be like, whoa, do you know what it took to make this? The person that made this dial couldn't even use the bathroom.
Yeah. Do you know how long they had to hold it in to get this watch done?
I could tell this craftsmanship is so good because it was made by dehydrated hands. Our next most popular story. Barge crash caused by sleeping deckhand results in $6 million in damages. In 2023, the Cindy B, a towing vessel, crashed and caused some $6 million in damages. The incident triggered an investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board, which found the root cause to be none other than sleepiness. A deckhand was at the helm of the Cindy B when it pushed the St. John deck barge up the Columbia River north of Portland. Unfortunately, the deckhand fell asleep and the vessel drifted out of the channel and hit a dock. The NTSB identified the primary cause of the crash as, quote, falling asleep. But there were some contributing factors here. The deckhand was at a low point in his circadian rhythm and had just transitioned from day to night watches, which changed his awake-sleep cycle. The pilot house alert also failed to wake up the deckhand because a swinging radio microphone was in a motion sensor's field of vision, and the system thought the pilot was awake and moving around. Research on shift workers has shown that there's a greater chance of incidents during the first 2 nights of a night shift period. None of the crew members were hurt, but the damages were quite costly. The crash happened at 5:52 a.m. local time. The deckhand's shift started at midnight and ended at 6 a.m. Ben, he almost made it.
Man, he was so close. I sympathize with this person here as a fellow sleepyhead. But, when you dig into this report, and not just, what NTSB released last week, you do kind of sympathize with this guy and you feel bad that he's the headline instead of the captain who was at the helm at 5:30, right?
Right.
Handed it off to the deckhand so he could go downstairs and use the bathroom. And then I guess
without punching out, you didn't have to clock out.
No,
he did not have to clock out to use the bathroom.
A little more common sense on this barge.
I know, surprise! This is our second bathroom story in a row. Crazy, But then he goes to the galley to make coffee, and he's probably just staring at the coffee brewing because he's down there for 22 minutes before he hears the barge crash. Right. Yeah. And to hear this guy describe it, it sounds like the deckhand, he was like, I was, at 5:30, I was feeling pumped up because we had just, loaded the barge, and at I think 2 hours prior.
Yeah, like 3:40.
Yeah. So, I mean, he didn't have any reason to be like, I'm really feeling kind of sleepy here. I wish you wouldn't take off right now to go look at coffee or whatever. And then, he says, last thing I remember, I'm just, falling forward, and that was it. And so I really feel like it probably is on the captain more than, the report is letting on, but I think it should be.
Well, I think it on the captain, yes, but I think it has to be more around the idea of when you switch from day to night shifts, right? Mm-hmm. Like there was a clear vulnerability here that they didn't understand. But you also sympathize with the deckhand where it doesn't matter what time it is. If you do something like loading a barge, you're kind of keyed up afterwards. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how that adrenaline dump can just crush you afterwards, So I'm sure when he was just like, yeah, I'll take over, man. No worries. I got another 30 minutes. Bring this home. And, I'm off for however much time. But so, Jeff, to me, this seemed like something that could easily translate to manufacturing as well, where when we see people transition from second to third to first, second to first shift, and, they're kind of asked to turn the page on Monday, they're working third shift Friday, and then on Monday they're starting on first. And, there needs to be some attention paid to, depending on how long they've been working on these shifts, their body's used to it, and it might be a transition.
Yeah. But you're pushing tons of aggregate down a river.
Yeah.
You're doing some pretty important stuff that I would think the very nature of your job means, you know what? I'm not going to fall asleep in 20 minutes.
No, but
that is ridiculous.
But you've never had an adrenaline dump like that where you're just like, I am keyed up and I'm fine. And then you're just,
The
sleeping.
adrenaline dump, there shouldn't be any dump. You're still on the job, man. You're still piloting tons of aggregate down a river to make sure you don't hit anybody or thing and sink the boat.
Yeah, I mean,
that should be enough to keep you awake.
It should be, but in some cases, maybe not enough.
Ugh, come on. This guy deserves all the blame. Not all, I take that back. Not all the blame. He deserves blame. Okay.
Yeah.
I have no sympathies for him and his circadian rhythms. Okay. None. Because what I will go back to is there was poor planning involved here.
Yeah.
If this was going to be that dramatic of a shift in their work schedule, then it is up to the supervisor, the manager, the captain to make sure his troops, his people are getting the sleep they need to carry on the mission or the job.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, I'm using some military terms here because I pull guard duty all the time.
Yeah.
Guess what? I still had to go out during the day and do my job and then come back and pull guard duty. That's my job. That's my responsibility. That's what I owe to everybody else that is within my unit or my work group here.
Yeah.
So he had a responsibility to fill here. He had to stay awake for 20 minutes. This is ridiculous. I disagree wholeheartedly with both of you in terms of sympathy for this individual. No, he deserves the blame. The captain also deserves the blame because, again, more should have been done to make sure people were ready to assume this new schedule.
Yeah.
The other reason that the captain's at blame is for leaving a swinging microphone, dangling whatever's that threw off the motion sensors. Either you tie up the microphone or like get some new stuff.
There has to be. I'm sure there's a little spot for it to hook onto or sit into a holder.
Okay. If that throws off your advanced engineering and motion detectors, then you need new stuff, which they did do. That was part of the NTSB report. They did upgrade their equipment, so this won't happen again. But the only ones I feel sorry for are the individuals or the companies that are out $6 million because this guy couldn't stay awake for another half hour. He was coming off his shift at 6 o'clock.
I know.
This happened at 5:52. Come on, man.
I know, but I mean, hey, so we see so many people collapse before that finish line. And
you know whose fault it really is? The captain for hiring this guy because he obviously couldn't handle it.
Oh my God!
I think some consideration would have been nice, considering that he was just like that maybe just transitioned to that
slept,
night watch.
but if you look at the log in the NTSB report, he was off from 7 to midnight.
Yeah,
he had 5 hours to rack out and do what he needed to do.
No, I agree. I agree that, well, my first point is on the over-reliance on tools, right? Like we talk about this alarm fatigue all the time, or we have, or we put too much stock that these safeguards are going to help us prevent disaster. And we still need to have a lot of personal accountability in that equation, right? Like it's wild to me that a swinging microphone could throw off this motion sensor and no one knew that the guy behind the wheel was falling asleep. Also, I mean, it comes a fair amount of responsibility where he said as soon as he started leaning forward and feeling sleepy, like that's when you got to like stop yourself and be like, hey, I need a hand. Because I'm on your side that way, Jeff, when it comes to his shift was from midnight to 6 and he almost like you are accountable for that time. It is on you, but you're also accountable to make sure that your workers have good situations to make sure that they are getting fully rested and that they could feel that they can call and say, hey, I'm feeling tired. I know it's only been 20 minutes. Also, why have you been in the John for 24 minutes? Where's that coffee? I mean, I feel like there are so many things that were kind of commonsensical here. And
but if the captain would have asked this guy at 5:30, hey man, you good? He would have said, I'm not tired. I feel good.
Yeah.
And by 5:44, he's dozing.
Yeah. Well, I know. That's why I was trying to think of a situation where you just did a lot of hard labor. I mean, it reminds me of when we cut down a couple of trees at the farm, right? You know, you're doing it in the snow. It's dangerous. You got to take, it takes a lot of concentration and like your body is really going. And right after that though, is that crash.
You want to take a nap?
Yeah. You do want to take a nap, yeah.
Oh, come on.
No, it's like...
And I only said that I sympathize with the guy. I didn't say that he, doesn't deserve any of the blame. I'm sure he's being held accountable in a lot of ways, But I mean, I just don't agree that like having a physiological response to being super tired and not really being able to predict when it's going to happen.
Is he 12?
But it doesn't necessarily mean
14.
He's, irresponsible or...
Yeah. Well, so I get it's crazy how fast things like this can happen. And I think that's something we should take from this as well. So the deckhand, his own words were that when he took the helm from the captain, quote, I was pretty pumped up still from untying the barge. So I was up, not tired. I felt good. After using the lavatory, as you said, Ben, the captain stopped in the galley, located on the main deck or the first level of the deck house, made a pot of coffee, hung out for a little bit. Just thought, you know what? What a good, productive day. We're home free.
Yeah.
And then the deckhand said, while steering the vessel, quote, I started leaning forward, and then that's all I remember. I sort of just fell asleep, and he woke up when the barge hit the dock. When you start feeling sleepy and you're driving a boat that's pushing a barge, you got to let somebody know.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the safe thing to do. But I think we can all agree that, like, since nobody was hurt in this incident, it's very comical. Like,
oh yeah,
no, it's not. How is this funny?
With the captain, like at 5:30, he's like, "You good? I'm gonna go use the bathroom, make some coffee." And the guy's like, "Yeah, man, I feel great." And then he leaves the pilot house,
thumbs up,
and he instantly like slumps over the wheel.
Yeah,
and then the captain's just hanging out down, making coffee or whatever, and has no idea what's going on up there.
It's straight out of some sort of barge-based sitcom. This is definitely. But the other thing is, sometimes we see $6 million worth of damage and it winds up being like a hole in a vessel. This, if you look at the damage, it is incredible. Like the damage he did to the wharf, the causeway.
Well, and here's the other thing that's not funny. They only spilled 2 gallons of fuel?
Yeah.
Could have been hundreds.
Could have been terrible, yeah. That's one thing that I like about the NTSB reports is they actually show the environmental impact from each of these accidents. But you're right, that could have been very costly as well. And it's, again, just you got to know your employees. You got to know your own body and I feel like there are so many things that could have prevented this from happening, and they just all went bad. Or, to Jeff's point, he was a terrible hire, a bad, irresponsible person that probably won't work again.
Not on my ship.
Man.
What was do you list your work as a deckhand on the Cindy B as previous work experience?
Yeah.
Oh, so how did that turn out? Well,
I was the other one. I wasn't deckhand 1. I was deckhand 2. I was fine. I was getting ready to tag in. All right. Our next most popular story. The first Tesla police Cybertruck won't be used as a patrol car. And this is actually our most popular story this week. Upfit is a division of exterior and interior upgrader Unplugged Performance. The company recently deployed a Tesla Cybertruck upfitted for the Irvine Police Department in California. The collaboration with Tesla will be used as part of the department's Drug Abuse Resistance Education, or DARE program. Upfit recently designed the Cybertruck to address the needs of first responders. So it has a roof-mounted lighting system, integrated rocker panel lighting, and a remote-operated spotlight system, among other features. For example, the electrical system includes a specifically designed wiring harness that supports the mobile data computer, a public address system, and police radios. The electrical system also avoids obstructing rear floor space because it has a rifle mount attached to the underside of the fold-up rear seats. Additionally, the Cybertruck provides various factory features like ballistic-grade stainless steel, HEPA filtration, bioweapon defense modes, and four-wheel steering. But while it is mission capable, the IPD says their Cybertruck is not going to be used as a patrol car. It will primarily be used for community outreach. But they said it can still be used in emergencies. The Irvine Police Department spent more than $150,000 of the upfitted vehicle, which it plans to use for 10 years. An outfitted Ford Police Interceptor typically costs about $116,000, but the department expects the Cybertruck to save around $6,000 in gas over the next 5 years. So, Jeff, if you look at these costs, it's pretty much the same because of the cost savings, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally. The PT Cruiser that they also used, I'm sure was very similar in price.
Yeah, it's just, they don't say that it's a $34,000 more expensive than their normal Interceptor. They say, we're saving $6,000, so it's kind of the same.
Yeah, their track record for picking out cool outreach vehicles, be like, no, man, you can have your PT Cruiser.
The PT Cruiser was cool for like a hot minute.
No, it wasn't.
It came out and everyone's like, wow.
Until somebody actually had to get in and drive it, and they're like, oh man.
Yeah. Because it was different.
This is horrible.
It was new. It was different. It was cool for a hot minute, and then everyone got a close up look at it, and they were like, oh.
Or they saw themselves in it, and they're like, ooh.
Yeah,
this is not going to help.
They like lined up perfectly when everyone was wearing fedoras, and it just like, it's not a good look.
No, you have to trust DARE a little bit in terms of what is going to be most effective in getting their messaging out there. Okay. It's a vitally important message. And if this is what they feel is going to tip things in their favor, you have to trust them.
Yeah.
Seems like an awful lot to spend on, you know, basically a promotional vehicle to kind of gimmick it out a little bit, stuff like that.
Is there any price to keep our children off of drugs, Jeff?
No, David. That's what I'm saying. You sort of have to put some blind faith and dare here and hope they're doing the right thing.
Okay.
What I actually found most interesting is looking at this outfit that actually did the upgrades here, Upfit or Up.Fit. This is what they do. They focus exclusively on Teslas.
Okay.
And whether it's a Model Y, a Model S, or a Model 3, that's what they do. They basically add all of these law enforcement type upgrades to these vehicles, with the thought being it's an electric vehicle, it runs more efficient, there's better reliability potentially. I would argue that a great deal. I was actually kind of relieved when I saw it was not going to be a patrol vehicle, because I think there are some concerns there for me when it comes to Tesla. But they make a case in terms of how quickly they can get it done, the responsiveness of Tesla to these upgrades and how they work with them. So it's very interesting, because we always talked a little bit about when we get into electric vehicles, are there still going to be some of those outfits? You know, we were talking about the Baja Bronco, you know, and where that emanated from. Are there going to be people doing the same things to EVs? Yeah. Evidently, there's just as big of an aftermarket opportunity out there with these types of vehicles. Now, how Upfit is going to go due to the fact that they're tied right now so closely to just Tesla.
So they only do Teslas?
They only do Teslas. That is what they focus on. Now, down the road, you would hope they would go into other electric vehicle companies as well, other electric vehicles. But right now, this is their focus. And I just find it really, really interesting, because they have a thing on their site where you can even compare their upgrade to any other vehicles that have traditionally been used for the same reason in law enforcement. So I would check it out. You know, Up.Fit. Sorry, that's their website. Yeah, if you had some time, it's interesting to take a look at what they can do. So it's cool engineering work.
Now, when it comes to the effectiveness of this as a promotional tool for Dare, Ben, I know that if it shows up for some sort of outing and we see it, maybe we giggle a little bit. But you know, maybe it's a generational divide where a kid sees a Dare Cybertruck and they don't think, oh, okay, they're going to keep us off of drugs with this dumpster on wheels.
Well, I kind of think.
Wow,
man,
how do you really feel? Wow. David, I don't
even know what to add to that. No, like I kind of think it looks cool.
Yeah.
But that's just the exterior paint, or you know, the wrap or whatever they put on it, which they probably could have just done that and to a normal Cybertruck, and it would have been a little bit more cost effective. But just because I think it looks cool as an old person who, you know, was like, man, that looks like what Van Damme would be driving, like in Time Cop.
Oh,
yeah, exactly, man. Instead of at the same time. Yeah, totally. I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool, but will the kids they're trying to target in the Dare program think it's cool? I know little kids, you know, from what I've read, little kids think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But older kids, especially ones who are, you know, aware enough of like Elon Musk and like his extracurricular antics, you know, outside of Tesla.
That's a good point, actually.
Probably don't see it quite as cool. My daughter's 14. She thinks the Cybertruck is dumb. Her friends, when they see one, they take ironic photos in front of it. Yeah. Which is probably as good as people taking, you know, not unironic photos, but still, it's like, I don't know. And they're going to use it how long? 10 years?
I think that was the timeline. Yeah.
So two things there. They're confident it's going to last 10 years, which seems foolish. And then also they're confident it's going to be still cool in 10 years too.
Well, that is a reach. I mean, it's a reach that anything now will be cool in 10 years. I mean, maybe it will sour so quickly it'll come back around.
Except this podcast.
Of course. Well, other than this
so
podcast.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very
super dope in a decade.
Super dope.
Cool forever.
But so for me, I was thinking more OCP with the vibe that this one's giving out, more of a RoboCop vibe. But I also thought,
good call.
Like, because I could just see this thing cruising in. And I do know that we just saw, my kids are 6 and 4. We just saw a Cybertruck at a festival, and there was definitely a, what is that? You know, so I could see if this was pulling up to grade schools, maybe a middle school. Yeah. There is definitely a cool factor to that.
Maybe they need to screen RoboCop in these schools, like before the Cybertruck shows up, and then they'll get it. They'll be like, all right.
What is a kid-friendly RoboCop runtime?
Wow.
Maybe 28 minutes. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like it's just him walking with a beep, beep, and then they're just like, oh yeah, the movie's over.
Yeah, he's like, halt.
Yeah. How did he become a RoboCop? Yeah. Oh, he just he volunteered actually. He wanted to be that. No, I thought this was perfectly fine. One thing that I'm interested to see is whether or not it is actually capable in these emergency scenarios, right? While it's not necessarily a patrol car, I can't wait till the first situation where this has to be put into a real-time critical situation and deploy some of these features and see how it performs. Because one thing is that it is big and bulky. So it's going to have to be, you know, some sort of emergency situation or disaster that's got a lot of room for it to maneuver or just come barreling through stuff. So I'm curious to see if it is actually mission capable. You know, what do you think, Jeff? Like,
it does look super sharp. So maybe it's good for like hitting stuff.
Well, yeah, you could see it come blasting through something.
I guess I haven't heard any operational deficiencies with the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
It's more focused on the aesthetics. So, I mean, when you talk about big and bulky, that's going to be any of those, whether it's a, you know, Toyota Tacoma or any of those other types of pickups that you see a lot of this done for law enforcement. They are big and bulky vehicles, but they're going through stuff, not as opposed to around it. So that's kind of going to be a wait and see too. I mean, it'll be interesting. I have reliability concerns with Tesla vehicles right now based on everything we've heard, based on sort of the over-the-air updates that are hit and miss. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out.
I mean, they'll just push an update. It'll be fine. And
it always is.
To that point,
just goes away.
As a promotional tool, last time we were at a county fair, the sheriff's department had a Hummer that had all the bells and whistles. And man, it wasn't just the kid that thought it was cool. You know, I'm walking through that thing and I'm like, all right.
Also electric.
Pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. Either way, I think that when it comes to using this as a promotional tool, if Irvine PD hasn't necessarily already gotten their money's worth, you know, it's had some legs. All right. Before we jump into, in case you missed it, the story is maybe not as popular on our websites like Industrial Equipment News or IN.com. Let's have another word from our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite. Knowledge is power, especially when navigating AI. Demystifying AI, a layperson's guide to artificial intelligence and its impact on our world, is a new business guide written by acclaimed author Glenn Hopper. The guide provides a comprehensive introduction to AI, shedding light on the core concepts and technologies that fuel it. Download it now. There's a link in the live chat, as long as producer Alex put it in there. And there's also a link in the description. Producer Alex says it's in the live chat, so download it now. Ben, one thing that I found interesting about this guide in particular is that we cover AI on a daily basis. And I think it's good as a refresher to just realize there's still a lot to learn about it and, you know, set a good foundation so that way when new things come out, you know where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, you still see stories like in the news. I think it was James Cameron had been talking about AI and how it could be like a useful tool. And all these people were like, but what about Skynet? Like you warned us, you know, back in the 90s to watch out for this sort of thing. And it's like, you know, there's so many people whose opinions and views on this stuff is still informed by, like, you know, whatever.
The Terminator series.
Sci-fi or anything you've read about. Yeah, so it's good to get like a good, like, common sense, simple explanation just so you can ground yourself a little bit and be like, maybe I don't have to panic, like, at the mere mention of artificial intelligence.
That's we got to tweak the headline for this one for Glenn. It's, you know, demystifying AI. It's not Skynet.
It's not Skynet
yet. No,
David.
All right. In case you missed it,
you just have to waffle on everything, don't you?
I'm not waffling on that. We'll see. We'll all see on that one. The stories maybe not as popular on the website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. Ben, what do you have for us as in case you missed it this week?
My in case you missed it is injectable foam bandage stops hemorrhaging. So University of Central Florida researchers aim to prevent bleeding in potentially deadly situations with a new hemostatic sponge-like bandage.
Woo.
Silfoam is a liquid gel composed of siloxanes, which are silicone and oxygen, that is delivered via a special two-chamber syringe that rapidly expands into a spongy foam upon exposure to each other within the wound in under 1 minute. The sponge applies pressure to restrict the hemorrhage at the delivery site while also serving as an antibacterial agent because of the silver oxide in it. So for every like 5 millimeters of this gel that you inject, you can expect it to expand to about 35 millimeters.
Oh, wow.
I think the advantages include like this is, significantly less leakage, room temperature storage versus requiring like cold temperatures. It's lower cost of materials and little to no training requirements to use this syringe, right? Mm-hmm. And I've said this before about medical solutions, but I love these ones that are relatively simple. They can be used at the point of care, and they solve a significant problem. I mean, this is something that could be put in use today, and it would have a huge impact.
Well, that's what stood out to me, the room temperature storage, because like how a lot of people have an EpiPen in their glove box, I could see this being in every glove box just because it's very simple, straightforward, very easy to use. And it's, it reminds me of that wound glue. It doesn't take a genius to understand how it works. Big hole in person, fill hole in person. The one thing that stood out to me, though, Ben, was I was surprised something like this didn't exist yet.
Yeah, I was a little. There are similar solutions, right?
Yeah.
But like they said, there's a lot of disadvantages to these, like having to maybe cold storage, or it's not as cost effective. So maybe you're not as willing to put it in every place where it might be needed.
Yeah. No, I need to get this in my the first aid kit in the RAV. And then, but I can't show the kids how it works because as soon as they see like a 5 millimeters expanding to 35, they're going to be like, oh, this is clearly slime. Yeah. And we can play with this.
It's basically like the spray foam that you use for like insulation.
Yeah.
But it's for your head when you crack it open, which sounds pretty scary, but don't worry about it.
Yeah. Not if you have your foam. Ben mentioned the other comparison I was thinking of, Jeff, is that it reminds me of that insulation foam.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
But it's so, sometimes these revolutionary ideas are so simple that they seem like they already exist. And you can't believe that someone else hasn't tried it before, but
just a level of innovation that makes it practical.
Yeah.
Is really what it's about. And yeah, I mean, the first thought was first responders, battlefield, sports injuries, all that kind of stuff. But you're right, just to have one in your glove box.
Yeah.
Man, little kids just find things to trip over and fall on and poke each other with and everything else. So that could definitely spare some trauma. And if this has a disinfectant element to it as well, not having to go for the peroxide or Bactine or any of that kind of stuff that is so traumatizing when you try to put it in there and clean your kid's wound out after they wiped out on their bike.
And somehow they've designed it to like kind of hold in place, but not also be sticky to the point where it causes damage when it's removed.
When they take it out. That's so cool. Yeah. And Jeff, not just kids. I mean, when we were putting new windows in the cottage, we were 5 minutes in and there was blood everywhere.
Man, the Manti men really, I mean.
It wasn't just the Manti men. There were plenty of Heil men there too. No, but no, it was just one in particular. I mean, it was sick. It happens, you forget to cut away once but everyone survived. We got all our digits. Jeff, what is your in case you missed it this week?
So I picked an article talking about Amazon and Google are making dueling nuclear investments to power data centers with clean energy. So, and we've talked about this before a little bit in terms of when we've got all of these new energy sourcing technologies that are becoming more and more prominent. The latest one is artificial intelligence, and it creates a need for more power. And the big challenge that presents in is with everybody trying to be carbon neutral or hitting sustainability goals, that's becoming not just important internally or for a public persona, but also like on the stock market. Like those ESG reports are getting part of financial reporting and very closely followed and looked at. So we've got two big people here, Amazon and Google, saying, you know what, we're not going to get there with windmills and solar panels and anything else. We're going big. We're basically opening up these nuclear power plants. For Amazon, they're looking at going to 3 Mile Island, which should stick out in everybody's mind. I mean, we ran an article talking about that.
Oh yeah, we talked about what are they turning it
I'm sorry,
into?
Microsoft is going to 3 Mile Island.
Microsoft is they're calling it like Crane.
Yeah, they're changing the name
like
of it.
Crane Peninsula or something.
Exactly.
What's wrong with the current name?
So, but what's really interesting when you look down the road is they're basically creating these power plants or building them. They're about third the size of a typical power plant. So the environmental footprint is less concerning, potentially. You know, it's not going to have less of an environmental impact. You're talking about fewer of those materials that would need to be mined to power them. And then it's kind of found energy. They're not sourcing from the grid. They're essentially creating their own to power these data centers that are then used to power all of their fun toys that they're coming out with, all these different technologies. And I think what's interesting to me too is if they can make this work and they can scale this appropriately, this opens the doors to further innovation in this form down the line. And we know we've got a stressed grid. We know it's going to take a ton of infrastructure building to get where we want to. If electric vehicles are where we're going, they still got to plug in someplace.
Yeah.
So if this is a potential thing that these two monsters can work out and make palatable on all these fronts in terms of making them more cost effective, making them more efficient, quelling some of the concerns over safety and environmental impact, this could be the way we go. And I think it's going to be potentially easier to sell to a lot of folks than wind turbines and solar panels and things of that nature. So I think this could have a real huge impact in terms of how a lot of industrial sites, whether it's manufacturing, infrastructure, wastewater, whatever it is, kind of answer a lot of these questions that we have down the road with the grid.
No, I think so too. And I will just echo the same sentiments I had last time when we were talking 3 Mile Island, is that I get frustrated when it takes an Amazon, a Microsoft, a Google to really push us where a lot of people said we should have been going anyways, and everyone was kind of bucking it and just like, no, only wind, solar are the only true renewables. Right. When people were saying like, no, if we do nuclear right and we get it right, it could be the key. And there was this diversion from it. But then all of a sudden, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are like, well, I don't know. Like, I guess since you abandoned this, I'll just kind of pick it up, pick up the scraps and use it to power my multi-billion-dollar industry. I get very frustrated with that. And I think it's just the nature of how our infrastructure is not only maintained, but also kind of dependent upon cyclical political alignments.
What also reinforced to me is that this whole sustainability thing and the whole renewable energy dynamic, it's getting past sort of the, hey, wouldn't it be nice? Isn't this a cool story? Look at all these windmills. Isn't this cool? We just put solar panels on the roof. It's getting to a more practical application of, no, this is real clean power that's more cost effective. And we're putting technology in place that can be replicated for a lot of other people that solves a lot of those deficiencies that other renewables have in terms of reliability, in terms of the amount of power that can be generated and a lot of those other things too.
Well, and Ben, with a lot of these stories, one thing I find intriguing is also how when private industry comes into otherwise public operations or semi-public operations, how they can streamline things, how they have sort of a little bit more of endless resources, and how it can completely change the game for some of these technologies.
Yeah, you kind of wish they would have done it sooner, right? I mean, they can come in and kind of push this thing across the goal line with a lot more ease than kind of a fragmented governmental body, right? And this does seem like a great solution. It seems like a lot of output from a relatively small footprint, right? And it's something that has been used in the past. And if you get it right, like you're saying, it's a massive amount of energy from, a relatively small source, you know, and you're talking about, renewable energy. And this doesn't necessarily, fit in with that, but this is something that's very, cost effective and, high output. So I think it's a great thing that they're finally kind of pushing this across.
It also makes you think what else is still out there waiting to be privatized in one form or another, whether or not it's a public-private partnership. I mean, we saw the entire space industry. When you look at that curve in terms of what the costs were, and then they plunge, what'll happen to nuclear, it makes you think that when sometimes these people from these titans of industry say they're going to come in and disrupt an industry, and everyone just thinks like, no, there's no way you could do that. It's, there's nothing that's untouchable, I guess. All right. Well, in case you missed it, this week is about GM Ventures. And GM Ventures just invested $10 million in Forge Nano to pursue a better battery. I think we're just still scratching the surface when it comes to battery technology. GM Ventures yesterday announced this $10 million investment in Forge Nano. That's a materials science company that specializes in atomic layer deposition. The company also entered a strategic partnership to find atomic layer deposition applications for GM batteries. So, what's atomic layer deposition? It's a surface engineering technique that applies thin film coatings to battery materials to control the chemistry and structure at an atomic scale. Using its atomic armor technology, Forge Nano is going to develop thin film coatings for GM to pursue battery performance enhancements and reduce costs. Forge Nano is going to also build prototypes of lithium-ion battery cells at its facilities in Thornton, Colorado. I picked this story because it has to do with the wild advancements in battery technology. It has a little bit of GM buy-in. I mean, when we're talking $10 million, that's not huge. But I mean, when we're talking about getting to the atomic level with battery technology, I get excited because it seems like it could solve a lot of problems when it comes to EVs. Jeff, or anything that's electric for that matter.
Yeah.
Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to check out the story, but what are your thoughts on GM Ventures and the possible work at Forge Nano?
Well, it makes a lot of sense. Excuse me. We talk about one of the biggest issues right now facing electric vehicles from a consumer level. It's that battery degradation and how it affects range and range anxiety. So to have something put in there that is not intrusive, it's not adding bulk, it's not adding weight, it's not adding a lot of technology to it in terms of providing a solution for that, I think that goes a long way. Checks a big box for not just GM, but any EV maker. And this would be something, this can be like, this could be as commonplace as a seatbelt potentially down the road. So this is pretty incredible. The thing that I wonder too is if this is going to help at some point in terms of controlling, if we can get into the chemistry, and I'm not going to claim to be anywhere near understanding the chemistry and the atomic level dynamics of an electric vehicle battery, but if we can do something with this layer then to also help with some of the recycling challenges that are out there, that's another game changer and a whole new business and market opportunity.
Yeah. Recyclability, making them smaller, making them lighter, making them safer. Ben, that's one thing with EVs is with this battery technology is, everyone seemed to make the concessions on the charging technology. Tesla was the winner there. I think there's still a ways to go when it comes to EV battery technology and who might be the winner and what that's going to mean in terms of a potential financial windfall.
Yeah, are we still talking about like lithium-ion batteries with this? And, and I know, you were talking about this technology potentially making them safer too. I know a big concern is like thermal runaway. I think I'm using the right term, but it's basically when it starts on fire and it is very hot.
Yeah, it's very hot, very fast, and unstoppable.
Yeah, like surface of the sun hot. And if this can help with that, because car fires happen, and it's not just an EV problem. But when you're talking about something this hot and this, intense, what was the story? I think just last month, it was that the Tesla semi-fire.
Yeah, the Tesla semi-fire.
And it took 50,000 gallons of water to put it out. Yeah, that's not sustainable if you have this going on a regular basis. That is just
that's a societal problem. All right. Well, before we get out of here, let's jump into our final thoughts. Ben, thank you again for joining us this week, man. Just crushed it.
You did okay.
Thank you.
I stayed awake.
I mean, that's Jeff's A+ right there. Like, those are his high marks.
Well, yeah, when I was coming in today, I was like, I'm going to do okay. And these people are going to love it.
Except for the story about the barge wreck. I mean, you kind of dropped the ball there, but otherwise we're okay.
Well, I don't know. I think we just had a disagreement. That's fine. I mean, you're team captain. I'm team Deckhand. Whatever.
I mean, that is something that we sometimes forget culturally, that it is okay to have two sides of the argument and still be cool. Or not, Jeff. Or we can resort to physical violence. I don't know.
You just sounded like, Dad David there. Boys, it's okay for us to feel differently about things.
Yeah, no, just Danny Tanner here getting down on a knee. What's your final thought this week, Ben?
I watched the Tesla live event last week, and they unveiled the RoboVan, which was kind of a surprise. And I think it looks cool. It's like a kind of an Art Deco design. It seems pretty versatile. The press photos that they included with that showed all these different applications, and some of them were pretty funny.
Yeah, the wedding.
Yeah, the wedding. Yeah, or it like just rolls up and it's a diner. I'm like, I think it was cool, but then I heard how Elon Musk pronounces it, RoboVan.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
the Tesla RoboVan.
Yeah, he calls it the RoboVan. I don't know if it's on purpose. Yeah, he was doing it on purpose. I don't know if it's a joke, because he's not like super funny.
He tries though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not for a lack of trying.
Oh yeah, he loves to try. But it was like, I'm like, don't call it that, because that'll kind of ruin it for, I think, a lot of people. Yeah, just call it. I think just go with the RoboVan. Yeah, I don't know if this thing will actually make it to production. They're like, we're gonna build it. And I kind of hope they do. It looks cool. I think one of the other applications was it was like pulling up to a Tesla on the side of the road. Yeah. And then the little humanoid robots jumped out and were like fixing the car for you.
Yeah. Optimus jumps out of the RoboVan.
Yeah.
And fixes the Tesla, which is odd. I mean, it is a good reminder that you can make a rendering look really cool. It's just whether or not you can deliver what's in that rendering.
Yeah, I mean, it actually showed up at the live event. They rolled it out.
They had a RoboVan?
Yeah, the RoboVan rolled out, and it looked cool. And I was like, maybe this is just like a completed shell.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it like the first Optimus? Did they just like paint an Astrovan?
Yeah, they just put it on the base. But no, it actually opened up, and it looked like the interior was legitimate, like just in the renderings too. So cool idea. Just don't ruin the name.
Yeah, Jeff, can you foresee a future when you summons a RoboVan via the app?
Don't use RoboVan.
Boy, that would take some getting used to right there.
Yeah, the RoboVan.
That is different.
Yeah, how do you not call that RoboVan?
It looks like, you ever seen The Rocketeer?
Yeah.
He knows.
Oh, it is The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that movie's good.
That is a good movie. Hopefully, the RoboVan. I'm going to only say RoboVan though. Just because it's too weird. He's onto something.
I'm like willing it into existence. I shouldn't have even like said anything.
Yeah. Do you wish that when you were married, Jeff, you could have...
I'm married now.
That's what I mean. When you guys were married.
Do you know something I don't?
No.
What happened here?
This is not a future way.
I was only gone a couple days.
Yeah, it was that. Hey, man, I mean, when you go on the road, that you could have, instead of driving to the wedding, you guys could have, arrived in this chariot RoboVan, for your magical day.
Man, I don't know.
Maybe it'd make it. If a RoboVan breaks down.
Let's put it this way. If it was said, hey, do you just want to try this out? No cost, just go for it. But if I had to pay for it, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. That's this is going to be the Uber Triple XL. My final thoughts this week is that last week my brother and sister-in-law came to town, and we were able to go to the Majestic, a really cool venue in Madison, and we got to see the Lost Dog Street Band and Nolan Taylor. It's this Appalachian bluegrass genre that I'm really into because it checks a lot of boxes for me. And it's just, it's not the speed of concert or show that I normally go to. And it was just like, you know what? It is okay that we're all just standing there having a good time. And, there was a little light swaying. There was a little, some toe tapping, and that was it. But I highly encourage checking out the Lost Dog Street Band and Nolan Taylor. Nolan Taylor is an incredible singer-songwriter, but he needs a hug. So if you see him, just give him a good squeeze. Because he got on stage and he's like, I was going to sing 6 and I was going to go up and down, happy, sad, but you're only requesting the sad one. So here we go. And it was wow. It was a solemn opener, you know, not your traditional opener. But one thing I did like was whenever people are talking, we're talking, which you expect with an opener. Sometimes people just do that. He would stop singing and stare at that person until they were quiet and then just continue the song. And I'm like, I immediately like this man. But I think he was taking it. At first, I'm like, oh, this is a good bit. I'm like, I think he might fight that man. Yeah. But so if you get a chance to check him out, it's pretty cool.
But be polite.
Yeah, but no, definitely don't speak while he is singing.
Well, break that guitar over your head like Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, no, it was he's he's coming for you. But no, if you get a chance, check him out. It'll be worth your time. Jeff, what's your final thought this week?
So as I sort of alluded to, I was out of town the last couple of days, went down to IFS Unleashed. Thanks to everybody at IFS. Great time, great event. Incredible stuff that they're talking about there in terms of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, just a lot of cool stuff going on. One of the cool things that I had down there is there was somebody from BAE who was giving a presentation, you know, the Mil-Aero firm. And the thing that was cool, he was a very interesting guy, but he showed a short video talking about the things that BAE is doing with IFS. And of course, there's pictures of boats, there's pictures of submarines and all this cool stuff. And he's like, yeah, when my kid asked me what I did, I just showed him this video. And now I'm cool, Dad.
Yeah.
So it just gave me an idea because like with what we do, sometimes it's difficult to really explain. And then you just dumb it down and say, hey, we just write articles for websites as opposed to all the other stuff that we actually do here, which is actually to us more interesting, but to everybody else, not so much. So I'm thinking, producer Alex, producer Eric, there may be a business opportunity here for you to like meet with people, find out what they do, and just put together a cool 30, 45-second video on what they do so they can impress their kids. Because that's all we want. Yeah. We just, for that glimmering couple of minutes, to be that cool parent.
Just like sizzle reels for dad.
Yeah.
So I'm cool. Just put some, you know, really pumping music into there and just doing some cool stuff, and maybe you can be a cool parent like that guy.
No, it's this week has been a good week for me with the kids, with the Ford Bronco story and the record-setting Corvette today, and then a couple weeks ago we had the Lego McLaren. So I'm you know, you gotta pick what you show the kids. You know, you show them that, you don't show them the article on high energy switches. You know, you gotta really check it out.
Yeah,
curate it.
Well, wait till they become teenagers and everything is dumb.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Also, to current teenagers, it's okay to be cool. No, it's okay. Like, just because your family's older and tries to wrap a couple of rules around doesn't mean that we're monsters. Just means that we don't want you to firebomb your life. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to reach the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Ben at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also email Anna at IEN.com with "We missed you, Anna" in the subject line, and just let her know that you appreciate when she's there. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can join everyone in the live chat when we go live. All right, every Thursday, typically around 2, unless, you know, there's a wrinkle.
Unless there's somebody holding things up.
Well,
it was me this time.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say
I was taking the blame.
I know, but I was like, you held things up, but then I took advantage of that, and then I held them up even more, and I was just like,
no one would have known, David.
No one would have known. All right, for Jeff Ranke and Ben Munson, I'm David Manty. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.